Hi, I'm Executive Chef Jethro Loichle at Ristorante Massimo in beautiful downtown Portsmouth. And I'm going to be making my monkfish poached in olive oil with white bean and fennel stew. So the first thing that we've done is we've taken half of a cup of white beans. We've let them soak overnight. I'm just going to put those on the stove. Bring those to a low temperature. And what I've done for flavor is I've taken an onion. I've studded that with cloves. I'm just going to put that inside of the beans and cover. I'm going to let those cook for about 45 minutes until they're soft. Next, I'm going to make a sherry reduction. Any dry sherry will work. You wouldn't want to use something that you're not going to drink to reduce. Just going to add that to the saute pan. With your sherry, you're just going to add about half a cup of sugar. You're going to let that reduce until it's about 1/3 of its original mass. Just want to give it a quick incorporation. Because it is 40% alcohol, it will flame, it will flambe. Just let it burn and just be careful when you're doing it. My next pan, I'm just going to start sauteing my vegetables, which are going to go inside of my white beans. I'm just going to add just a little bit of olive oil, 1 bulb of fennel, 1/2 of a large Spanish onion, just a little bit of kosher salt to season and also help the vegetables break down. You just want to place this at medium temperature. Just really want to encourage the caramelization that's happening. The sherry looks like it's just about ready. Once the sherry is reduced to 1/3 of its original mass, you just want to place them on the side and let cool. I've got my vegetables continuing to caramelize, and then I'm going to place those to cool and add them with the beans that are going to take about another 40 minutes. Now that we have our monkfish portioned, what we're going to do is we're going to sear it and then start cooking it in your olive oil. This is a first cold press olive oil. I like to bring this to about 110 degrees. Fish should be completely cooked at about 120, so allowing it to rest will actually bring it to your temperature of 120 degrees. So I'm going to start with a little bit of kosher sea salt. I'm going to liberally season this. The further up you start with the salt, the more even it will be distributed. If you start really low on your fish, it just gets clumpy. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to add a little bit of a fennel seed. This is just fennel seed that's been ground up. You can find this in your supermarket or do it yourself in a little coffee grinder. And I've also got a little bit of cracked black pepper. This is going to make a nice crust for the fish. While I'm crusting this fish, I just want to make sure that I've got a saute pan that's going to medium-high heat. You really want to get in there with the black pepper and the fennel. Just want to add a little bit of olive oil. You can see that the olive oil is pretty close to its smoking point. Just want to cool the saute pan down a little bit. The smoking point is actually right before it's going to catch on fire, so this is a very hot pan right now. A good way to not ever burn yourself. Just want to keep your pan tilted forward. Take your monkfish, place it in the saute pan, not directly in the oil. A lot of people, what they'll do is they'll drop your fish right into the oil and end up with burned arms and hands. So you've got all 4 pieces there. Just want to set the saute pan on there. Make sure that you're turned up all the way to high heat. And the heat is actually going to work a little bit hotter in the front of the pan than it is in the back of the pan. So what you want to do is while you're rotating the fish, you want to turn the fish, but then also move the fish from front to back to ensure that the fish is searing properly. You can see that our olive oil is at about 110 degrees. We'll start actually waving back and forward from just the olive oil coming up to temperature. It'll just start moving back and forward. You can see it's called waving of the olive oil. Now that we've got a golden brown crust on our monkfish, we're just going to remove this from the saute pan and let it cool for about 3 to 5 minutes before we add it to our olive oil. Now that we've allowed our monkfish to cool for about 3 to 5 minutes, should be just a little bit warm, not cold to the touch. Just want to submerge that into your olive oil. And that is going to take about 10 to 12 minutes to cook. You'll be able to tell that it's cooked, but you'll see just a little bit of white beading coming from the monkfish. Next, we're going to use a 1.25 pound lobster. This will feed 4 to 6 people for a portion size. What I've done here is I've broken the lobster all apart into the different components: the claws, the tail, and the body. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to slice the body in smaller pieces to allow it to steep faster, and also to allow the cream to cover it. I'm going to just break the knuckles back on the claw. An easy way to do it is if you just press it against a cutting board. Simply like this. It'll usually just snap off. Next, I'm just going to cut this lobster tail right in half. You start right at the center, use your finger, press down. That's an easy way to not cut yourself. And come back and try the other side. Use the heel of your hand, try to keep your fingers away from it. Just want to add the lobster to the pot. Then I'm going to be adding just enough heavy cream just to cover it. I'm going to turn that on to medium heat, and that should take about 5 to 7 minutes to complete the steep. Now that our lobster meat has steeped for the 5 to 7 minutes, I'm just going to start removing the lobster meat from the shells. We are going to be retaining the rest of this cream to finish the sauce that's going to go with the beans and the vegetables. So these are going to be hard shell lobsters. If you want lobsters that are going to be a little bit easier to clean, you might want to ask for some soft shell lobsters. There's a little bit less meat inside the shell, but they are cheaper per pound. So the lobster meat, I'm just going to take it out of the shell. I'm just going to start dicing it to emulate the same size as the vegetables, which is going to go inside the beans. Just want to chop your lobster meat and set it aside. I'm just going to finish this lobster meat, and then we're going to get the vegetables and put it all together for you. So now that we've got all of our ingredients cooked, I've strained my beans thoroughly. I've let them sit in the sink to make sure that all of the water is out of them. I've got my lobster meat that's out of the shell and picked and minced to be the same size as my fennel and my onions. My lobster sauce has been retained to finish the sauce, and here's are the tops of the fennel fronds from the fennel that we sauteed earlier. So now to put it together, I'm just going to get a saute pan that's about medium heat. I'm just going to add just a little bit of olive oil. You're going to add your vegetables first. And all we're going to do is incorporate this. This does not need to re-cook. You're going to add your beans. And finally the lobster. I'm going to add the cream. This is the cream that's been incorporated with the lobster bodies in the poaching process. So it's taken on a lot of that great, rich lobster flavor. Now that this is incorporated, just want to let this come down just a little bit to reduce. I'm going to take these fennel fronds off. Just start pulling them. Just with your hands, just rip them gently and add them right to the saute pan. You can see it's percolating really nicely around the edges of the saute pan. It's got a very perfect heat. And now we're ready to plate. I'm just going to remove a piece of my monkfish using a slotted spatula. That way you're not dragging the olive oil all over the place. I'm just going to pull one piece of fish out of here. As you can see, it's started to exude a little bit of its fat, and that's how you can tell that it's perfectly cooked. I've reserved just a little bit of the lobster cream from earlier. I'm just going to put that down on the saute pan, or in the plate. Make a couple pavés. Take my lobster bean mixture. Just add a small amount right in the center of the plate. You can see those fennel fronds have started to wilt, then I'll add just a really nice freshness to it. Now I'm just going to take my very moist piece of fish. I'm going to just cut off the ends. The reason I'm doing that is just to make it stand up a little bit straighter. Just going to slice this. You can see that's absolutely perfectly poached. Olive oil is probably my favorite way to cook fish. It really allows it to stay so moist and so juicy. You can see all of the juices coming out of this. I've also reserved just a few of these fennel fronds. We're just going to decorate our plate around with a little bit of these fennel fronds. I'm going to add my monkfish to the plate. You always want to start with a good base underneath, and that'll allow you to build up from there. There's your monkfish on the plate there. This is our sherry reduction that we reduced earlier. Just going to give that just a little bit of reduction over the top. And finally, just for a little bit more texture, I've just crispy fried a little bit of julienne leeks. We're just going to add that to the top of the dish. And there it is.